chosen.
33. Welcome to Baseball with Handshake, where we're going to continue with our contenders / pretenders predictions here for 2023 for the 2023 Major League Baseball season, and we're actually going to move on from the NL West, which I discussed in my last video, and I'm going to move on to the NL Central. And the NL Central is interesting, so definitely a lot to talk about. I'll try to keep it short and simple and sort of straight to the point, but the NL Central is interesting, right? You have the Pittsburgh Pirates, you've got the St. Louis Cardinals, you've got the Milwaukee Brewers, the Cincinnati Reds, and you've got the Chicago Cubs. So a lot to discuss. So I'll just jump right into it. Again, welcome to Baseball with Handshake. My name is Handshake, and where we talk baseball and have fun, man. Have fun. And so let's go ahead and jump right into the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates came out hot and heavy here in the 2023 season. I mean, even as someone who's in, and that's not my team, but even as someone just a fan of baseball, I was so happy for the Pittsburgh Pirates and their fans with how they came out. I mean, they just came out swinging. So to just kind of like talk about the Pirates and their team, whether or not they're contenders or pretenders, I'll jump into the impact that Andrew McCutchen had coming back on the team. I think there was a lot of excitement. I think McCutchen is looked at as a legend in that franchise, and rightfully so. He led that franchise, I believe, to 3 postseason appearances. I want to say from 2012 to around 2014, 2015-ish, somewhere around there. And McCutchen's back, right? McCutchen's playing pretty darn well. At least he started off really hot. McCutchen, I think he's at about 267 right now, 8 homers, pretty good amount of RBIs. He's used as their DH primarily over there in Pittsburgh. So I think there was a lot of excitement. And honestly, I'm going to be honest with everybody, I think that's the reason for their hot start. Yes, if you look on paper, their starting pitching was darn good up until here recently, where they've been on a bit of a dry spell. I think they just fell below 500 as of today. And so with that being said, the Pittsburgh Pirates have a lot to definitely be excited for. Sawinski has some pop out there in Pittsburgh. Their pitching, is okay. They've got some decent young starting pitching, and that sort of thing with the Pirates. But are they contenders or pretenders? I mean, as much as I want to say that the Pittsburgh Pirates are contenders, unfortunately, they're pretenders. The Pittsburgh Pirates are absolutely pretenders, and I don't mean that in a rude way or disrespect. The Pittsburgh Pirates, I think they're going to give their fans something to look forward to this season. I don't think they're going to be an awful team. I think they're going to be a team that finishes maybe right at 500 or right below or right over 500. But the Pittsburgh Pirates just don't have it, right? Again, I think the excitement of McCutchen coming back, I think the clubhouse was excited, and you saw the way that they played early on in the season, right? I don't think that those were necessarily fluky wins, but I think a lot of it was just team morale and that sort of thing, right? And so as we see as of late, the past, I'd say 2 weeks, the Pirates just aren't playing that well, and I think that's how they're probably going to play. Not as bad as the last 2 weeks have been, but I don't want to get too deep into the Pittsburgh Pirates, but they're definitely not contenders. I know that they signed Reynolds, which is a huge win for an organization like the Pirates, who traditionally don't spend that much money. They got Reynolds to sign a very team-friendly deal out there in Pittsburgh for the Pirates for 8 years. I want to say $108 million. I hope I'm right on the actual contract there. But with that being said, yeah, they get to watch Reynolds. They get to maybe see McCutchen and maybe possibly his last season of playing baseball. Maybe he'll re-sign with the Pirates again for one more year. Who knows? But there is something for the Pirates to watch for. They got some nice young players. I think really what hurt them as well as O'Neal Cruz going down. That definitely hurt as well. I think he's going to be out for the season with I want to say a knee injury that O'Neal Cruz has. Another exciting guy for Pittsburgh fans or Pirates fans to look forward to. But the Pirates are definitely pretenders. So let's move on. Let's move on to the Milwaukee Brewers, the first place Milwaukee Brewers. As of right now, right? And we're nearing the end of May here. The Milwaukee Brewers are leading the National League Central. And why are they leading the division? They're leading the division because they pitched really well, right? As of now. A couple of concerns with the Brewers. The Brewers just can't hit. I don't know how else to say it. They haven't hit. They even just lost one of their better hitters and better defensive players in Willy Adames to a freak injury. I mean, the guy was literally at the top rail of the dugout, of their dugout, and caught a stray with a foul ball. I want to say it was Brian Anderson. I think it was Brian Anderson or Weimer. I think it was Brian Anderson that hit a foul ball, swung late, and Adames unfortunately was looking out to the side, right, sort of like one of those, maybe talking to a teammate, and got hit in the head. And the good news is that there's no fractures, right? It kind of brings me back, and I'm old enough to remember Juan Encarnacion getting hit and really ending his career. I mean, fractured his eye socket or whatever, and he had some sort of skull fracture, and that was it. I mean, he couldn't see as well anymore. And Juan Encarnacion was having a pretty good, darn good career, 10-year career. But I digress on that. But anyways, the Brewers lost Willy Adames. The Brewers are banged up in the starting rotation. I honestly believe that if the Brewers had Brandon Woodruff healthy and a couple of their other starting pitchers healthy, I mean, for goodness sakes, the Brewers have had to pick up Julio Teheran off the street. I mean, literally, this guy hasn't pitched in a couple years. And don't get me wrong, Julio Teheran was a fantastic major league pitcher for the Braves prior to his injury and that sort of thing that happened, where he missed some time and he battled back. He was in the Padres minor league system. He was there in spring training as well. I mean, trying to fight for a roster spot, and the Brewers were like, man, we're so banged up. We're going to give Julio a look, even though he hadn't pitched in a couple years. But Julio actually had a great start. I think he went 5 innings, 1 run against the Giants a couple days ago. So he definitely pitched well. The Brewers did not win that game, but Julio pitched well, man. Julio pitched really well. But with that being said, their starting pitching is just so banged up. I mean, Brandon Woodruff, when he's on, is a borderline all-star, really solid number 2. Obviously, they have Corbin Burns, who actually hadn't pitched that well. I mean, he's pitched good, don't get me wrong, but not as well as he's pitched in the past. But he still pitched really well for the Brewers. He went 7 innings, 1 run ball a couple days ago as well. But the major thing is the Brewers just can't hit. For whatever reason, the Brewers haven't really developed anyone that can hit. Christian Yelich, as we've all know, after that that huge season that he had and signed that long deal with the Brewers, and then after being injured, he's just not the same, right? He's more of sort of a singles hitter. He's doing okay, but he's not doing what you need, what the Brewers need Christian Yelich to do, given the contract and that sort of thing. And the fact that he doesn't play that great a defense as well. But with that being said, the Brewers do catch the ball. So the Brewers do well in that department. And again, I would honestly think that they would be contenders if their starting pitching would be healthy, because if their starting pitching was healthy, because Devin Williams is practically unhittable. I mean, to me, the changeup, that's not even a changeup. It's literally a screwball and a changeup combination, and the pitch dances as if you're watching a cartoon throw a baseball, and it's all over the place, and it comes back in for a strike or doesn't. So I mean, the back end of the bullpen's nice as well for the Brewers. Problem with the Brewers is they can't hit, and it just flat out just injuries. I mean, again, Willy Adames going down is huge. They're going to lose a lot of power there, some defense as well. I think they had Bryce Terang covering for him, or Brian Anderson covering for him at short. I forget which one it was, but with that being said, I don't want to go too long on the Brewers, but the Brewers are not contenders. They would absolutely be contenders if their starting pitching was healthy. If their starting pitching was healthy, they would be contenders in my book all day. And Willy Adames hopefully doesn't miss that much time and that sort of thing. But unfortunately, I don't think the Brewers are contenders, although they are currently in first place in the NL Central. But if you look around baseball, there are a lot of second and even third place teams that would be in first place in the NL Central. So I don't think it's saying a whole lot with the Brewers being in first place. But with that being said, I don't think that they're contenders in 2023, just based on how the NL West has shaped up thus far. And with the talent in that division, they might take every single wild card spot. So, again, the Brewers are not contenders here in 2023. So let's move on to the Cincinnati Reds. I'm just going to get this out of the way really quickly. Again, no disrespect to Cincinnati Reds fans. The Cincinnati Reds are absolutely not contenders. I think even Reds fans will tell you we're not contenders. Although I'm sure Reds fans love their team. They've got Jonathan India over there. What I will say, this is the thing I'll say about the Reds. I think that the Reds have one of the brightest starting pitching rotation futures in baseball, and this is why. I think they have a legit number 1 and number 2 starting pitching tandem with Ashcraft and Hunter and with Green, right? I don't know if anyone and I know Green gets all of the accolades. He throws 100 miles an hour. He gets a lot of strikeouts. He's a young arm. And I know they just signed him to a pretty, I'd say even a team-friendly extension up into his free agency. I think he just got a 6-year deal, north of 60 million, I believe, or 60 million exactly. But with that being said, Ashcraft is absolutely nasty. I'm telling you, if you all go watch highlights of Ashcraft, even when he gives up runs, the guy's throwing upper 90s cutters, sinkers, like he's nasty. Hunter Green is more of a four-seam, slider guy. Just the absolute, I'm going to come at you like a dog. And Ashcraft is, I'm telling you, he's almost just as nasty. And so I just think, obviously if they can build around that starting pitching core that they've got going on right now, and they've got Jonathan India there. I don't know if they have a whole lot else, honestly, on the team, young players position wise. But if they can just build around that, I think they have a bright future. And what we know about baseball is starting pitching will win you games. And as we look in the past and we look at Milwaukee Brewers, the Milwaukee Brewers contended all the way up until towards the end of the year after that Josh Hader trade, and they finally died down just because they just couldn't hit. But the pitching was there for the most part with the Brewers. That's what I see with the Reds. If the Reds can get that pitching, those number 1 and 2 guys, and then maybe fill that rotation in with some vets here in the future. Get some solid pitching behind those 2 guys, Ashcraft and Green. I just think the Reds could be nasty. They can absolutely be nasty, especially if they keep Diaz. Diaz is a really good back end reliever. As well. So I think Reds fans definitely have some things to cheer about now and even into the future, even if they're not contenders right now, but they're definitely pretenders here in the early MLB 2023 season. So let's move on to the St. Louis Cardinals, right? You're like, I bet everyone's thinking like, handshake. So who's gonna be a contender? Like everyone can't be pretenders in this division. Doesn't make sense, right? Or everyone can't be a pretender in this division. Someone's got to win the division. Someone's got to go to the playoffs, right? And again, for anyone who watched my previous video with the NL West, I'm looking at a team that can contend for a playoff spot, not necessarily win the World Series, right? We're talking about contend for one of the 6 league playoff spots that they're in, whether it be American League or National League. So that's what I mean by a contender. So the St. Louis Cardinals, on paper, the St. Louis Cardinals are one of the best teams in baseball, right? We see what happened to them early on in the season. I almost put them in the Padres' shoes. They almost remind me a bit of the Padres because the Padres have all this talent. I still said that the Padres are contenders this year, just because I can't see that team not being a contender with that much talent on the team. But the St. Louis Cardinals have near the same amount of talent. Maybe not lineup-wise as far as names go. As far as just actual star names, right? I think the Padres have more star names, but the St. Louis Cardinals lineup is definitely more than capable. They've got a lot of good young players there in St. Louis. Obviously, they have the big names that we know of. They have Nolan Arenado. They've got Paul Goldschmidt, right? Reigning NL MVP Goldschmidt, and that sort of thing, right? And so you've got that already. You've got Nolan Gorman, who's playing really well for the Cardinals. So the offense has not been the issue. That's the thing. Look at the numbers on the Cardinals, though. If we look at the Cardinals, their offense is not the issue. It's not the offense, right? If we look at the pitching, oddly enough, the starting pitching, which I don't think anyone thought would be an issue with the St. Louis Cardinals, given the veterans that they have there in the staff. I'm not saying anyone thought that the St. Louis Cardinals would be top 5 in baseball in pitching, or ERA or whatever, or WHIP or anything like that, but definitely not as bad as they have been. And a lot of it, from what we have come to find out, is people, all of us are watching baseball, especially Cardinals fans. We're hearing is stemming from the offseason acquisition of Wilson Contreras, right? With that being said, you got the Cardinals, so much talent, on the Cardinals. I have to say that they're contenders, and I know people are going to say, how are they contenders? They're 6 games under 500, right, already to start the season. I think we're 54, 55 games, depending on the team and how many games they play, games into the season thus far in the 2023 season. But I'm telling you, the St. Louis Cardinals are going to win this division. And remember this, the St. Louis Cardinals are going to win the NL Central. They are going to absolutely win the NL Central. just because they've played really well as of late. And again, I know they're still 6 games under 500. And people were probably thinking, how can you say they're going to win the division? I'm telling you, the St. Louis Cardinals are going to win the division. They've got too many veterans there. MVP, Gold Glove winner, and in my opinion, is going to be a Hall of Famer as well, Nolan Arenado, as long as he just keeps up even a decent pace. I mean, if he hits 20 home runs a season for the rest of his contract and still continues to win those Gold Gloves, which he's won 10, I think he's won a Gold Glove in basically every season he's played as a full-time major leaguer so far. So they got too much talent over there. Nolan Gorman is very talented. Dylan Carlson, although hasn't produced as well this year, is very talented as well. Tyler O'Neill, which I think is still going to break out. They've got too much talent over there in St. Louis for me to say that they're pretending. So, last but not least, let's move on to the Chicago Cubs. And I know I'm going to get beat up for this because the Chicago Cubs are, their fans are raking. You got Nico Horner's there. I think Nico's always going to hit for a really good average and play solid defense. And then their starting pitching is not that bad, right? The only thing I'll say about the Cubs right now, bullpen issues, major bullpen issues. Again, I'm not going to get too much into the stats here, but major bullpen issues. And I also think the back end of the starting pitching. So the starting pitching is okay 1 through 3, but the back end of that starting pitching rotation is also a concern right now. But again, the Cubs have some nice young pieces that they can potentially build around, right? They got Seiya there. Seiya is Suzuki's performing pretty well thus far in the 2023 season. But with that being said, the Chicago Cubs are not contenders this year. They are pretenders this year, and you can say it shows in their record, but I don't necessarily go by record. I go by how I see the team performing. Even if that team was at 500, right? I know Chicago Cubs, I believe, as of today, they're 22-29 in record-wise, but I just can't see how they can really dig themselves out of it. They don't have people on that team that have won, and I think the Chicago Cubs are a couple more years out. And honestly, I really think the Cubs are more years out than the Reds are. So too far. I'm looking for these Reds in the next couple of years. If those top 2 guys, Ashcraft and Green, can put it together, they're going to be great. But Chicago Cubs are pretenders for the 2023 season. So as far as the NL Central goes, I know the St. Louis Cardinals are going to win this division. I'm telling you. And I'm not a Cardinals fan. I'm just telling you the Cardinals are going to win this division. Too much firepower over there. I don't think they're going to die off yet. And they've got Gorman playing well. Their pitching has to be better. I know it's going to be better. I know Wainwright is an older starting pitcher, but he's going to pitch a little bit better as well as their other starting pitcher. So that's my take for the 2023 National League Central Division. We got one contender. We got one, right? Well, you got to have one because one person's got to win the division. But with that being said, thank you all for tuning in and watching Baseball with Handshake. I'm going to do some more fun videos here coming up. Again, I'll definitely continue, though, with the divisional contenders/pretenders videos. Look for those videos to drop soon. But with that being said, Handshake out. 33-33.